Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona, and this is the March 31st edition of Horses to Watch, where we look at horses from around the country that might be worth following based on the races that they ran last week. This week on the show, we're not going to focus so much on horses that encountered adversity or had poor trips. I want to look at a couple horses that showed ability in starts that they had last week, one from a maiden race at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, and one that faced an unfavorable pace scenario at Santa Anita, also on Saturday out west. But we're going to begin with that race down in Florida. It's a maiden race from Gulfstream Park on that Florida Derby Day undercard. It was actually the first race of the day, race one, going a mile on the turf for maiden special weight runners, 3-year-olds. We're going to focus on the number 2, Colton's Command. Let's break these horses from the gate. And spoiler alert, the result of this race is that Colton's Command is going to be a pretty impressive winner. And he doesn't have any adversity in his trip, but I just think that the kick this horse shows at the end of the race is pretty noteworthy. You'll notice as they come out of the gate, he's the number 2 horse. He breaks a little bit fine, finds himself in a spot towards mid-pack, a little towards the back of the field. And this race featured a pretty even pace scenario, a fair setup for horses trying to come from off the pace. They were going a moderate clip up front, and horses that were heavily favored. I think there was a top toucher horse in here, was even money Shaftesbury. He finds a spot close up to the front and really looks like he's in position to win throughout, but he just turns out to be no match for this first-time starter from the Bill Mott barn. Colton's Command, you can see in those purple and white silks, is towards the right of your screen as they turn onto the back stretch. He's going to slot in behind that second group of runners, basically racing in the clear, which I think is a good thing for a first-time starter. But I just thought he showed a lot of poise and professionalism for a horse that was just making his debut. Bill Mott, while he is known for having success with first-time starters on the dirt, he really does not have very strong numbers at all with horses debuting in turf routes. So it's a little atypical for this horse to be so ready and prepared to win first time out on this surface. And I just like the way that this horse runs. He's a son of Twirling Candy. He's out of an unbridled song dam, but there's really not a whole lot of quality on the dam side. This horse, though, being a son of Twirling Candy, definitely has that precocity from the sire line. And as they come around the far turn here, you can see Junior Alvarado angling him to the outside in that black cap, coming outside in those purple silks. And once he gets into the clear at the quarter pole, he's going to kick it into another gear and easily run by the leaders here. And I just love the way this horse switches over to his right lead at the perfect time and is able to level off in the final eighth of a mile to kick clear from this field. Looking at the Trackist numbers, he ran his final quarter mile in 23.20 seconds. And this is a race where really nobody else ran a final quarter mile in under 24. So he was just basically finishing in a different league than the other horses. And I thought he's the kind of runner that showed maybe stakes potential in this first start. He got an 86 buyer for this race. The Timeform US speed figure was just a 94, so a little bit lower than that buyer number. I talked to Craig about it, Craig Milkowski, who makes the Timeform US speed figures. With so many first-time starters in this race, he acknowledged this is a race that might be a little faster. It was difficult with all the different run-ups at Gulfstream Park to get an accurate read on some of these races where there's not a lot of prior history for these runners. But regardless of how fast he ran, I thought that Colton's Command showed a lot of professionalism and ability in this first career start, and he's one to look forward to down the line for Bill Mott. The other race that I want to talk about on this episode of Horses to Watch is that race from out west, Santa Anita, last Saturday. It was actually the feature race on that card, the Grade 3 Santa Ana, going a mile and a quarter for the fillies and mares on the turf. Let's break these horses from the gate. I want to focus on the number 5, Red Lark. I'm focusing on this horse because I think she ran well within the context of this race, given that she encountered a very unfavorable pace scenario. The eventual winner of this race is going to be the horse that gets to the front end pretty soon after the start. She's in the white cap there that's going to Vegas. She was the second choice in the wagering to the heavy favorite Mucho Unusual, and the two of them are vying for the lead here, but Mucho Unusual is going to be taken in hand and let Going to Vegas go on with it. And you see all of the riders are grabbing pretty hard. Nobody wants the lead in this situation. None of these horses are really front runners, so the horse that ends up defaulting and taking the lead ends up being the one that gets the best trip because she's able to set her own pace on the front end. And this race, no surprise, given how slowly they're going early, turns into a sprint to the wire once they get into the stretch for the second time. But we're focusing on the horse that's towards the back of the pack in the 2-path, the number 5, Red Lark. And this is just not the situation that you want to find yourself in a paceless race. Red Lark is a horse that has a closing running style, so she's kind of between a rock and a hard place, or at least her rider is. He's got to place her towards the back of the pack, but she's also never on the rail in this race. She's too wide around the first turn. She's going to be too wide around the second turn, even having to tip into the 3-path to eventually make her move. And you can see these fractions going up, 24 and change for the opening quarter, 49 flat for the half mile. Coming out of that hill chute at Santa Anita, horses typically set much quicker fractions than that, even in these longer route races. So this is an extremely slow pace for the distance, and you could see 1:14 for the 6 furlongs. They slowed it down even more going down the backstretch. And by the time they're rounding the far turn here, you can see that the rider on Going to Vegas starts to push the button a little bit and try to create some separation on these horses, because you don't want to let them catch up to you by the time they get to the top of the stretch. You want to have your horse in position to make that sprint for home. And Going to Vegas, by the time they get to the quarter pole, you can see that she's in full flight by that point, whereas Red Lark, who's still towards the back of the pack, her rider's waiting, and right here, he makes that move out to the 3 or 4 path to try to make a push towards the leader, but he just has way too much ground to make up, and at this point, everyone has so much energy left at the end of this race, they're all sprinting for home, so he can't really make up any ground, and it's actually a credit to Red Lark that she's able to pass all the horses towards the back of the pack and get up for third here, because nobody else is changing position at the end of this race, and she was able to pass half the field and get up for third there, finishing best of all of the other runners behind the winner. Red Lark is a filly who's just turned 4 years old. She was actually a Grade 1 winner last year at Del Mar when she won the Del Mar Oaks. She ran very well against a salty field at Keeneland in the Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup last October. So she's shown real ability against top company. I just think her last couple of starts in California, she really hasn't had a chance to show what kind of horse she's developed into as a 4-year-old. In this race, she got no pace. Prior to this, she was in the Buena Vista going a mile, which is probably a bit too short for her. Again, that was a race that was dominated towards the front end. So I think Red Lark might have matured more than it appears in her form, and she can do better next time out if she gets a fair pace setup. Well, those are all the horses to watch this week. Remember that you can always follow these horses on DRF.com by adding them to the Horse Watch. You can make a list of these horses in Watch Mail and get emails when these horses run back, when they have workouts entered in the future, and have results. So that's how I like to follow these horses when they run back in the future. Thanks for tuning in this week, and make sure to follow Horses to Watch on future episodes of Horses to Watch on upcoming Wednesdays.